Welcome back to the college basketball betting show here. I'm Mike Randle for FTN Chief Content Officer. College basketball season is upon us. We are moving forward. It's now January. It's now 2023. Life is good, and we continue to move forward here after a great night last night, 3-0 in the bet tracker and 16 consecutive picks correct on the Action app. Remember, I put one pick in. It's a free bet a day on the Action app, but I direct you there to come to FTN for all my picks if you want them, and we have continued to roll. We've been scalding hot here. So many great things to share with you, so I can't wait to get into it. What we're going to do today, folks, if you're new to this show, this is a volume-based show. I'm going to go over a ton of games. I've actually thrown some games in this time that I may not be betting and I may not recommend a pick, but I want to go over them because a lot of you have questions from certain games. So I've loaded up the slate. We're going to go through them quickly. Please hit like and subscribe, of course, on the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and put those comments in. I will get to them as we see fit. Remember, today we're taking all sides here. Make sure to come to FTN. We have Frank Brank in the Discord. We have Walt Waddell giving you daily fantasy advice. We have Mike Kutry, who's up almost 100 units this year on college basketball. So we have a ton of great action for you here. Let's get into it. Last night was a great night. So I'm looking forward to having some picks today. Let's get some Discord, get some conversation going back and forth. Here we go. First pick, and this is the one I'm putting in the Action app as my free bet, is we're talking about St. Bonaventure and George Mason. Now, St. Bonaventure is going to be home in this game, and that to me is the big difference. This is a fascinating game because George Mason is scalding hot. They've won 7 of their last 8, but the level of competition has not been great, and all of those games that they've played well have been home. Bonnie's entered this year with just 0.3% of their minutes back. They had basically an entire new team with Mark Schmidt, but when they're home, they have played well. Now, the Bonnies have lost 4 of their last 5, which is why you're seeing them as an underdog at home, but all of those games have been away from home that they lost. They destroyed a very good UMass team, crushed them at home, and really got back, I think, on the right track. And those games that they have lost, it was Siena, which was really tough, which was away. They lost a back-and-forth game. They played at Northern Iowa. That game was not easy, and they lost that one late, and then they beat UMass. So St. Bonaventure has been playing a lot better than if you look at their record. Now, Mason produces almost 36% of their points from beyond the arc, and that's the strength of the Bonnies defense. Bonnies currently ranked 12th in the nation in defending the three-pointer, only allowing 27.5%. I don't trust George Mason on the road, especially because they are atrocious from the free throw line. George Mason shooting only 62.6% from the free throw line. That's 347th in the nation out of 352 teams. I don't think Mason gets hot from 3 at St. Bonaventure, which is always a very difficult place to play. Mark Schmidt at home. I will take him as an underdog every time. This is my official pick on the Action app. We're hoping to get to 17 straight there in the Action app. I'm putting in 1 a day. This is hit, and we're going St. Bonaventure. We can actually get it at 1.5 right now against George Mason. Now, people have asked me before in the comments, do you worry if you don't have closing line value? I do not. What happens with the wagering does not affect what happens on the court. Last night, I liked Kansas. I got it at 1.5. It went up to 2.5. It went back down to 1.5. And in the end, we got to the window. So I do not care about how the line moves. If you see you get good closing line value, of course, I'm happy with that. But I will not change my handicap if I'm not sure about how things are going to go or I see things going differently. Frank Brank in our Discord. Love the Bonnies today. Frank is up early in the morning. He never sleeps. And Frank is on this game as well. If Frank's on the Bonnies, I feel much better about it as well. Let's keep moving. Next game, not one of my top picks, but I want to put this in. I am not afraid of a road game here with Charleston. I like taking home underdogs. You know that. Iowa State at home against Baylor. When you get a team at home getting points, I love it. But I am not afraid to step out and take a road team. As I said to Dane on the Daily Bet Show yesterday, you have to have a matchup that I really like. I start with intra-conference games by taking the home underdog. You have to prove to me that I should lay it, and I think Charleston's going to do it here. Charleston's on fire. They have the nation's longest winning streak at 13 straight games. North Carolina A&T has a new coach. Philip Shumpert took over after 3 lackluster years by Will Jones. Now, North Carolina A&T is now in the CAA. This is a new conference for them. They're moving up from the Big South. So this is not a team that is used to seeing Charleston, that is used to defending them, that is used to seeing what they want to run every year. They are home, but they're facing a Charleston team that's the king of the conference, that's great on the boards, and that plays with pace. The Aggies are allowing their opponents to shoot 56.8% from inside the arc, so it's not like you have a good defensive team here at home. And that was against opponents like New Mexico State, Northeastern, Norfolk State. Now you're dealing with a Charleston team that's much better than all of them. It's a lot to lay on the road here, so I would not say this is one of my top picks, but if you want to bet this game, I'm backing a Charleston team that won at 18 at the Citadel, that won 14 at a tough Coastal Carolina. It's always tough to win at Coastal Carolina. They won by 14 there. Majority of the bets at most books appear to be on North Carolina A&T, but the money is backing Charleston. Always a nice sprinkle to our wagering Sunday. I will take Charleston here minus 11.5 against North Carolina A&T. Next game, I am not wagering on this game, but I have to talk about it because people had sent comments to me on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Randle Rank. Come into our Discord here at FTN, become a subscriber. We can talk about it. I am not laying 7.5 points with Auburn, but you know I don't like Mike White, and you know I don't like Georgia. So I am not on this game. I don't believe in Mike White, but 7.5 in an SEC road game is a ton. I can't do it. I can't do it because Auburn is shooting less than 30% from three-point range. I can't do it because Auburn is shooting 67% from the free throw line. That's not a profile of a team that I'm willing to lay 7.5 points with. I don't like Georgia. They're 6-7 against the spread, but they have covered 3 of the last 4. Stay away from me. I would love if this game was in Auburn, but I'm not laying it here. So I would be very careful if you're looking to invest in Auburn, Georgia. I think 7.5 is a lot of points. Another one I am laying, however, is Villanova. And there are some teams, if you've joined us here on the stream, you understand there's certain teams that I'm just going against. And there's a couple here today. One of them is Georgetown. Georgetown is struggling big time. I think Patrick Ewing's job's on the line. They're 5-10 overall. They lost 5 in a row. 7 of 8 they've lost. They're just 5-10 against the spread, and they haven't covered in 4 of their last 5, the Hoyas, and it hasn't been particularly close. Georgetown lost by 17 at DePaul. 17 at DePaul. There's no Jay Heath. And remember, always be careful and check to see if there are last-minute players that are absent. I picked UMass at St. Bonaventure on New Year's Eve, but then about 10 minutes before game time, we heard that Wildens Levesque and Rasul Diggins were both out of the game. Levesque is going to be out for a while. Diggins was there for his girlfriend who's going into labor, so he was there for that. That changed the pick entirely. I bet against it, actually, and tried to make some money back and took St. Bonaventure because I thought UMass had no chance. So I'm assuming Jay Heath doesn't play in this game. They lost at home to Butler by 29 points, Georgetown did. So if Heath doesn't play, loses one of their major scoring options. Villanova's playing real well. Cam Whitmore, the freshman, is an integral part of the offense. Wildcats had 2 tough losses in a row at UConn and Marquette at home, who's fantastic. We saw it again last night with a big comeback at St. John's. This is a disciplined Villanova team. They're number 1 in the country in free throw percentage, 84.2%. They don't turn the ball over. They capitalize on mistakes. Georgetown's a sinking ship, and that's why I'm breaking my rule and laying a large number, double digits here. I think Villanova is going to win by, even on the road. I'm going with that. Next game here, one of my favorites on the slate. I am not exactly sure why Michigan, and the number is growing, is favored by so much over Penn State. This number is actually at 4.5 now. So when we made these graphics here by George and Fox, do an amazing job of their graphics here at FTN, it was 3.5, and I was recommending it. Now it's up to 4.5. Michigan came off that 35-point dismantling of Maryland at home, which is precisely why I'm going with Penn State here, because Michigan is one of those teams like the Dallas Cowboys and Duke that people want to bet on. That game to Maryland was a Kevin Willard game, who I don't like. That game was a Maryland team that cannot shoot. They're only shooting 30.8% from three-point range. This Penn State team can shoot, and they can shoot the lights out. 38.8% from three-point range is top 20 in the country. 54% from two-point range is top 60 in the country, and 78% from the free throw line, that's top 20 in the country. And they are top 40 in the nation at holding opponents inside the arc, allowing just 44% from inside the arc. Are we aware also, folks, of the season that Jalen Pickett is having here for the Nittany Lions? Jalen Pickett, 17 points, 7.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, and shooting 48.2% from the field. Penn State won at Illinois before Illinois started struggling, and they lost in double overtime at Clemson, so they've been very competitive on the road. Did we forget that this is a Michigan team that before the destruction of Maryland lost at home to Central Michigan? Did the Terps win just cure all their problems? I don't think so. Jalen Llewellyn tore his ACL. He's been out. They have struggled since. Penn State will need to contain the big man, Hunter Dickinson, inside from Michigan, and I think they do that. Top 40 defense inside the arc. I think they get the job done. This is a sharps versus squares bet. Bets are flying in on Michigan as they always do, but the money is going on Penn State. I love this line is going up. Penn State with head coach Micah Shrewsbury doing a superb job, and Jalen Pickett as a first-team All-American player. That is the level he's playing at. I don't think you can name 10 players who've had a better season than Jalen Pickett for Penn State, and that's why we're taking the Nittany Lions, plus now 4.5. You can get it at Michigan. Next up, Iowa State and Oklahoma. I love what Porter Moser has done at Oklahoma, and it's an Oklahoma team I thought would struggle this year. The toughest conference in the country is what the Big 12 is. Preseason poll, the Sooners were 7th. This conference is so tough that all 10 teams in the Big 12 are ranked in the Ken Pom top 40. So even the 10th team, which happens to be per Ken Pom Iowa State, is ranked inside the top 40. Nobody is better forcing turnovers than Iowa State. Number 1 in the nation in defensive turnover percentage. Grant Sherfield has been spectacular for Oklahoma, but the Cyclones are great at limiting that production from three-point range. The Sooners' strength is limiting three-pointers as well, but Iowa State does not need to generate those points. Oklahoma needs to generate points from three-point range. Iowa State does not. They don't shoot the three ball for the majority of the points. Only 28% for the Cyclones from outside the arc. They have Asuna Sudi inside, the St. Bonaventure transfer who contains the interior and helps them on the boards. You can beat Oklahoma if you play defense. Sherfield for Oklahoma has been lights out, 18 points per game, 52.2% from three-point range on 69 attempts. You must contain Sherfield. I think Iowa State has the defense to do that. Otzelberger's defense is what I'm backing here, especially when I'm getting 3.5 points. Open at 4.5 points, so it's dropping, so I would get it quick. Next game, yep, on the road here, ACC, I'm laying points. You're gosh darn right I am. Georgia Tech stinks. That's my summary. And now they're facing a Miami team that can absolutely win the ACC. The waters are parting here for Miami to make a run at the conference title. You can get them, Miami, at plus 1,400 at most books to win the ACC. And after last night's Virginia loss at Pittsburgh, that looks fantastic. The only undefeated teams in the ACC are Miami, Pittsburgh, and Clemson. And we'll talk about Clemson in a little bit because I don't think they're going to be undefeated after tonight. Miami will not slip up here. Georgia Tech has lost at home by 23 points to Clemson and 18 to UVA. They've been non-competitive. They're 0-3 in conference. Georgia Tech 6-6 against the spread, which would scare you, except for the fact that they covered their first 3 games, which means that they are 3-6 in their last 9 games against the spread. They have failed to cover in 4 or 5. The Yellow Jackets do defend the 3, but Miami generates 56% of their points inside the arc because they attack off the dribble. Hurricanes have even had some bad luck. Teams are shooting 73% from the free throw line against Miami. Georgia Tech, on the other side, has had tremendous luck. Teams only shooting 64% from the free throw line against them. Luck ends tonight. You have Isaiah Wong, you have Jordan Miller, you have Nigel Pack, you have Nochart Omir inside. Too much talent. Maybe Tech puts a big scare on them early, and maybe they're up like 20-14, something like that, because they don't want to go to 0-4. But just like at Notre Dame, when Notre Dame got up, Miami will wear you down, and I think they pull away late. That is a Miami team that I am laying 6.5. This won't surprise anyone where I'm going here. I continue to fade Duke. Duke is going to get a ton of money from the public here. Now, I don't like NC State either because I think Kevin Keatts is on the hot seat. But I am going to lay the point. I'm going to take the points here with NC State at home. Duke so far this year, Boston College at home. Boston College hung around that game. They did cover, but it was close. Then they go to Wake Forest, get their doors blown off. And then Florida State at home, again, very up and down. This is not a Duke team that I trust on the road yet. They're great at defending the three-pointer. But NC State under Kevin Keatts, they play with pace. They play tough. They don't turn the ball over. They do make some shots. And they're coming off a loss away at Clemson. But so far this year, they've played Pittsburgh tough at home. They played Miami tough at home. And I expect them to keep this game close. I don't like NC State, so this is not one of my favorite picks. But laying points with Duke, I think it's overinflated. I think it opened at 4.5. And the bets come in on Duke, and now it's up to 5.5. You may even be able to get 6. I just think people are still not observing that Duke is a team in transition, that Duke is a team with players coming inside and outside and having some trouble getting some chemistry going. They've been fine, but I'm not impressed with them against the spread so far this year. NC State plus 5.5. Again, not one of my top picks, but if you want to wager on this game, I would definitely take the points because I don't trust Duke, which is still a team that's young, which is still a team with a new head coach in John Shire. And the last time we saw them, they were basically non-competitive at Wake Forest. Wake Forest better than NC State, but if it's 5.5, maybe gets up to 6, I will take those points as well. Make sure to put the comments in if you have any questions as well. We'll keep going through the games here. Davidson, Loyola, Chicago. I don't like either one of these teams, but I do think Davidson is a desperate team at home, and I don't like Loyola Chicago. Davidson beat Fordham away, which was a very impressive win, a game I did not think they could get. Then they come home to Dayton and they lose. The issue is with Loyola Chicago with Drew Valentine. Drew Valentine in his second year, again, I've talked to you about coaches who are replacing tremendous coaches in their second year. There's been an adjustment period. It's part of the reason why I faded Texas Tech this year. It's part of the reason why Hubert Davis, despite a fantastic year last year, has struggled. John Shire in his first year. I just think coaching matters, especially when you're replacing a phenomenal coach like Porter Moser. So now what you're seeing with the Ramblers is they're 6-7. Now what you're seeing with the Ramblers is they just come off giving up 97 points. The Ramblers, the defensive Loyola Chicago Ramblers, 97 points to George Washington. So they're going on the road now against a Davidson team under Matt McKillop, who took over for legendary Coach Bob, and they've struggled as well. But I like Davidson here a little bit better. I like how they defend the three, which is where Loyola Chicago has to get their points because they love to shoot it from three-point range. They are terrible, Loyola Chicago, at turnovers. They've been careless with the ball. I'm laying the number here. You look at this on the surface, you have a 6-7 Loyola Chicago team going against an 8-6 Davidson team, so it looks like it's 50-50. I don't think it is. I'm laying the points with Davidson. I like them in a bounce-back spot. Loyola Chicago has not been impressive this year. They have played away at Harvard. They lost. They lost at home to DePaul. They lost a semi away at Stanford by 13, non-competitive in that game. And then they give up 97 points and lose by 10 to George Washington. This is not a spot where they bounce back. I will lay the points here with Davidson against Loyola Chicago. Uncertain about this game. This is one I have to check right away to see if Quisenberry is completely healthy. Quisenberry played last time for Fordham, but he certainly didn't look good in that game. The reason that I took Fordham against Davidson is because Quisenberry was back. He missed the VMI game. Well, what did Darius Quisenberry do? He played 34 minutes and he had 2 points and he was 0-7 from three-point range. So this game, if I decide to go with it, is going to be based on whether I think Quisenberry is healthy. This Fordham team has been very, very good when he's been rolling. They were 12-1 with some solid wins there on the road, home against Harvard. Maine, who's not easy this year. Illinois, Chicago at home, huge comeback. But they need Quisenberry healthy. If Quisenberry is not healthy or you hear that he's sitting out this game, I am absolutely on Rhode Island. But if he's back and I think he's ready to go, which is going to be difficult for us to figure out prior to game time, I like Fordham with the 2.5 points. So this one is Quisenberry dependent. It's another one you have to check to see right before the game who's healthy. But the big tip I'll give you here is Quisenberry could be out because maybe he came back too early. 0-7 from three-point range against Davidson. They got their doors blown off in that game, lost at home by 14. They've been great against the spread and overall at home. Do they have a bounce back? This is a team that won at Tulane. This is a team that scored 95 points at Tulane Fordham, but you're going up to Rhode Island. They're going to battle. They're going to rebound. If Quisenberry's out, then I'm going with Rhode Island. Other than that, I have to assess Quisenberry's status, and I may take Fordham. You know, South Florida's been a lot better than I thought they would be. I didn't think South Florida was going to be good this year, but they've actually been competitive. And they were, honestly, to start the year, they weren't great, but they've been much better of late. South Florida here played a tough Memphis team away, and they battled, and they ended up losing by 7. But after starting the year 0-5, you know, Brian Gregory can coach, and he can really coach defense. This team is strong on the defensive side, especially at forcing turnovers and especially inside the arc. They lost 5 games, South Florida, to start the year. Southeast Missouri State, Auburn, Stetson, Austin P, UAB. But since then, they've gone 6-2. They lost at home to a good UMass team that was totally healthy and filled with their players at that time. They've had some injuries since. And then they played well against Memphis. Temple, on the other hand, I like Temple, but they're coming off a win at East Carolina and a home victory over Cincinnati. I think this is a bit of a sleepy spot for them. I like South Florida at home. I love what Temple has done. They're solid on defense, but Brian Gregory's team is underrated. People like Temple. No, South Florida doesn't really move the needle, especially when they started 0-5. But I'll take a Brian Gregory team that's 7-2 now in their last 9 games, and a Brian Gregory team that's only laying a point there. Are we sure at this point that Temple is good enough to win on the road to East Carolina and on the road to South Florida to start the year? I don't think so. I'm going to take the small number. I'm going to lay the small number, rather, with South Florida here against Temple. This next one I like a lot. Dayton is a different team. Dayton is a team that when the season started, we believed in them, and then we saw that they were struggling and people got off of them, but I am firmly back on Dayton. Look at what they've done their last few games. They have won Dayton now 5 games in a row. UNC Asheville, Wyoming, Alcorn State, Duquesne, and Davidson. They've started 2-0 in conference in the A10. They don't have any game on the horizon. They have Fordham away, then VCU, Davidson. So there's not a big rivalry coming up on the horizon here. But I like this team. They beat UNC Asheville by 23. They beat Wyoming by 17 on a neutral. They beat Alcorn State by 42. They beat a good Duquesne team at home by 12. They beat Davidson by 14. This is a lot of points, especially with a St. Joe's team that can be competitive, but St. Joe's does not have good metrics this year. They don't defensive rebound. They don't force turnovers. And Dayton at home is starting to look like the Dayton we thought they were going to be under Anthony Grant, returning almost their entire team. This is a momentum play. This is the fact that Dayton has been hot. It's 14.5. I'm laying it. I think Dayton gets a comfortable win here over St. Joe's. I'm impressed with Dayton. I'm impressed with Anthony Grant. I think they've righted the ship after losing 4 of their first 7 games, including 3 in a row to Wisconsin, NC State, and BYU. But since then, they have battled. Their only misstep was on the road to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech can always be tough at home, and they're going to be tough at home again tonight. I am going to lay a big number here with St. Joe's because it's a momentum play with Dayton, who's getting hot and has some big-time players, Deron Holmes, Kamara, Kobe Elvis, players that can shoot it from 3, and they're really tough at home, and I don't trust St. Joe's on the road. Good luck figuring this game out. I'll take anybody in the comments figure out how you think this game's going to go. Duquesne has been a team I have struggled handicapping all year. I like what Keith Dambro does, but they're very streaky. Sometimes they can get hot, and sometimes they can be terrible at home. I mean, they beat DePaul at home, but they struggled. Indiana State, they put up 92 points on Indiana State. Winthrop, they beat at home. Then they lose at Dayton. They came back and beat Rhode Island. I guess I would take Duquesne in this game, but I am staying away because also with VCU, you never know what you're getting here with Ace Baldwin. And if Baldwin's on the floor, he can wreck the game. VCU has been really hot. They've won 5 straight games in a row, but all of those games have been at home. Now they're going on the road. They are number 8 in the country, VCU, in turnovers, and they're playing a Duquesne team that does not turn the ball over a lot. They can get sloppy at times, but Dambro's a good coach. I guess I would lean Duquesne, but this is not one of the games I'm taking here if you're looking at it. I like VCU. I love Ace Baldwin. He's healthy unless anything comes out today. But this one is too close for me to call. I would lean Duquesne because they're home, but that 1.5 line looks like it's coming down to the last possible possession. And I think there's some other choices here that we can go with. Much like the Richmond Spiders at home laying 8.5 against George Washington. G-Dub coming off a big win, 97 points against Loyola Chicago. Prior to that, G-Dub had lost 5 of the last 6, including Seattle on a neutral, Pepperdine, both of those games by double digits. I think this is a letdown spot. I think that's a great win for George Washington. They started 1-0. Now they're going on the road to Richmond here. Richmond 0-1 so far in the conference in the A10 with the George Mason loss. That was away. It was 4 points. It was 3.5. We lost the cover by half point. I think they come back here. They've been very tough at home. They beat Coppin State at home, Richmond, by 18 points. They scored 83 because they can really fill it up at home. They beat Bucknell at home by 10. They beat Drake at home by 30. So this is a team, Richmond, that has showed you under Chris Mooney, despite losing a lot from last year, Jacob Gilliard, all-time steal leaders in the NCAA, that they can score it. And I think they do so again here, and I'm laying the points. And I know we have some followers here, one who is from Richmond, I think. I'm going to lay it again here, even though we lost by a half point there at George Mason. I think the Richmond Spiders, Tyler Burton, big game tonight. Give me 25 points and a comfortable double-digit win over George Washington. Folks, UNCG is good. People don't think UNCG is good. They are good. UNC Greensboro has been really strong this year and has come back, and they defend very well. UNCG has beaten Western Carolina away and Wofford away. And I don't like Wofford at all this year. But those are impressive road wins in the SoCon. Now they're coming home against Chattanooga. And there's one thing you have to do against Chattanooga. You have to defend the 3. Chattanooga gets 48% of their points from three-point range. They are the most three-point dependent team in the entire country, Chattanooga. And you saw them get scalding hot against Middle Tennessee State, which is why they pulled the upset. I don't think that's happening against UNCG. UNCG locks you down from three-point range, only allows 31% to their opponents, and we're laying a small number here. I like UNC Greensboro under Mike Jones. They have played some tough teams, Hofstra, Stephen F. Austin, teams that defend. They were tough against Miami early in the year, who's fantastic. I think UNCG at home, I'm going to take them. Chattanooga, either they're going to make the threes or they don't. When they make them, they're scalding hot against Middle Tennessee State. They get a great road win. When they're not hot, they lose to Belmont at home in overtime. They lose to Georgia, and they lose away to the Citadel. So I think this is a tough road matchup for them. UNCG at home, I'm going to take the 1.5 because I don't think Chattanooga will get their three-pointers going. Don't trust Florida. Do trust Buzz Williams. I call him Buzz Williams, big game Buzz Williams, because he always gets his team up in these spots. Texas A&M tends to play to the level of competition. Texas A&M plays Memphis. They play tough away. They lose by 4. Texas A&M at home, Northwestern State. It was kind of a close game. They pulled away late. Prairie View A&M pulled away late. But I think Buzz is great in these big moments here. And I remember following him when he was at Virginia Tech. He always gets his team ready to play. This is a team that forces turnovers. This is a team that defends inside the arc tremendously well. And this is a Florida team with Todd Golden. Todd Golden's going to get it right at Florida. Todd Golden is a superior coach. He was fantastic with those years at San Francisco, and he deserved this job. But these are not his players. He is struggling to acclimate the guards to Colin Castleton inside. They lost to Connecticut at home by 21 points. They lost to Oklahoma in a neutral game. They lost to Auburn away by 3, and they were up in that game. I am taking Texas A&M with the 6.5. This game reminds me of last night's game with Kentucky and LSU in the bet tracker. I put in LSU plus 10.5. I liked it because I didn't trust Kentucky. I don't think Florida can put together this type of game when they've been giving up three-pointers, when they've been terrible on the offensive boards, and when they're not forcing turnovers. Texas A&M should be comfortable. This is not a team that's going to get up and get away from you. Colin Castleton has been very up and down, and they haven't been great on the offensive end of the ball with the shooting. So I like Texas A&M. I like Buzz Williams in this spot. I think Todd Golden will get it right, but I think Todd Golden has to have some of his players, which he doesn't have yet. Just a quick one here. Don't like Northern Iowa on the road. Valparaiso at home. Again, 2.5 points. Always a game I'm going to take with Valpo. I don't like laying points with Northern Iowa. This is not a team that the way it's been in the past with Northern Iowa. They don't shoot the 3 well. They don't defend well inside. They don't hit the offensive board, so they're going to let you hang around. They're 2-2, Northern Iowa, in the Missouri Valley. Valparaiso, 0-4, needs a win. We have a desperate Valparaiso team here who's lost some tough games. They lost overtime to Murray State at home, a game they should have had. They played Drake away. They lost a close one. They struggle at home against Indiana State because the big inside. I don't see it here. I like Valparaiso getting 2.5 points. I don't see them going to 0-5. I think they actually win the game outright. I will take the 2.5 there. You're going to be surprised at this one. I didn't think you are. East Carolina plus 5.5 against UCF. I'm going to continue to fade UCF. I just don't trust Johnny Dawkins in these spots. And East Carolina at home has been competitive. East Carolina 10-5 overall this year. East Carolina solid on defense, allowing 31% from three-point range, only 47% from inside the arc. UCF 10-4, but have lost 2 of their last 4. They were tough against Houston. And when you play Houston, it's much like playing the San Francisco 49ers in the NFL. They beat you up. Now they go on the road here. East Carolina, bit of a letdown spot. East Carolina needs this win. UCF has been battling, but the law of efforts with them going against Houston, I think they come out a little flat. And I was very impressed by East Carolina's win at Wichita State. They won by 10 points in their last game. So they are 1-1 here in the AAC. Too many points. East Carolina at home against Johnny Dawkins and a UCF team that I'm going to continue to fade. This one I don't have a feeling on. I like getting the points here in a conference game. Tulane has been good, but they've been hot and cold with the shooting. They've been very up and down. I'm going to take the 13.5 points with Tulsa. You have a Tulane team that's 8-5, 1-1 overall. Tulsa was tough against Houston. They actually were trying to keep it close for a half. They've struggled against teams that can bang the 3. Tulane's going to have to light it up from 3, but Tulane, despite having all those shooters, has not been great from three-point range, only 32%, and they allow 37% from beyond the arc. So I think Tulane can get going here a little bit. I got Tulsa can get going here a little bit. It's not one of my picks, but if you want to pick this game, I would take the points with Tulsa at 13.5. Folks, Wofford is not good. Wofford is not good. It's a Wofford team that historically, the type of games that they have played, they have relied on making three-pointers. They are not making three-pointers at the same rate. They're actually shooting under 30% from beyond the arc. And that is why they lost at home to East Tennessee State. And that's why they lost to UNC Greensboro. And that's why they're going to lose here on the road against Mercer. Terrible on defense. They have to score it inside the arc. Mercer can get hot from three. They're shooting 37% from beyond the arc, and they're even great at home. Wofford is not the same team that it normally is. I am taking Mercer laying 1.5. I love this line because it's low, and I expect it to go up as well. Next game up, one of the big games for me, because I have a brother-in-law who's up in UMass. St. Louis, it's now 3.5, and I'm fine with it at UMass. I don't think UMass is ready for this type of game because Wildens Levesque, the big man inside, is out in this game. Yes, they have Fernandez back, the guard, who has played very well for them and hit a huge game-winning shot against Murray State. But I like this St. Louis Billikens team. And on the road, Travis Ford going up to UMass. Remember, Travis Ford used to coach at UMass. So I like St. Louis. It's up to 3.5, and I'm laying it there. They're great at defending inside the arc. UMass is going to have to shoot exceptionally well. They don't force turnovers, but they don't turn the ball either. The Billikens don't. They have Yuri Collins, one of the best point guards in the entire country. I know the Mullins Center is going to be rocking tonight. I know UMass is ready to go, but my problem is UMass is not fully healthy in this game. They are not. So even though it's 2.5, I am going there. I am going to lay the points. If you get it at 3, that's fine. I have no problem with that. I am going to lay the points here, and I'm going with St. Louis, even though they're on the road here against UMass. Couple more games here. Get those questions in. We'll just finish it up. I don't like New Mexico State. I think since Chris Jans has left, they've been a little up and down. I know that they battle, but I just don't like them here. And Stephen F. Austin at home is very tough. They're going to turn you over, and that's what I worry about in New Mexico State. Stephen F. Austin have always been tough at home in the WAC. They've won 3 straight games here. Jackson State, Abilene Christian, UT Arlington. They're 2-0 in conference. New Mexico State is going through an adjustment period. Greg Hire is going to get it right there. But without Chris Jans, it just isn't the same team. New Mexico State has lost 3 of the last 4. Kent State, Southern Utah, Sam Houston State. They lost to Sam Houston State, which is a team that defends like Stephen F. Austin and forces turnovers. They lost to them by 13. So Stephen F. Austin tonight, always great with the pressure, top 10 in the country at turning you over, and they shoot the lights out from 3, 15th best in the nation at 39% as a team. I think the line's too small. I think this is a reputation line with New Mexico State here. I don't like them. It's only a small number, laying 2.5. I'm going to take Stephen F. Austin there. I don't like Murray State. You know that. I don't like the hire with Steve Prohm, the new coach, and I don't think this is the same Murray State of the past. I think we're living off Ja Morant's reputation. I think we're living off a fantastic year last year, but Bradley has impressed me, and Bradley has been great, and the fact that they're on the road, I have no problem with this. So in this game tonight, folks, Murray State, again, I am laying the points. Very rare that I do that, but I'm laying the 4.5 with Bradley on the road. Murray State lost away at Middle Tennessee State by 16. They lost to Southern Illinois, who is not nearly as good as Bradley. Murray State not shooting the 3 well at a 30%. Murray State not forcing turnovers, one of the worst teams in the country. They do defend the 3, but you're looking at a Bradley team here that can score inside and that has a top 10 defense inside the arc at 42% allowed. Bradley at home, I'm fine with it. I like Bradley in this game, and I'm laying the points here with Bradley on the road against Murray State because honestly, I just don't trust Murray State. It's a team that I've never liked, and I'm not going to break it now. It's done very well for us this year. Okay, few games left. Any questions, of course, let me know, and we're almost at the end. I'm fine with Missouri getting 7.5 against Arkansas. I'd like to see who's going to play in this game because it's going to matter to me who is going to be healthy in this matchup with Arkansas. But Arkansas, without their full complement of weapons, and folks, they don't have a bench, Arkansas. You look at the loss to LSU, they played 5 players 32 minutes or more, and the only bench players that Arkansas played was Kamani Johnson, Jalen Graham, and Joseph Pignon for a combined 9 minutes. So Arkansas cannot play their normal level of defense because they cannot get into foul trouble. They are missing players, Arkansas. We need to know the status and see who's going to be available tonight. You know that Trevon Brazile is out. You know that Nick Smith is out, of course. So they are shorthanded, and they're going to have to rely on Anthony Black, Devontae Davis, Ricky Council, Mekhi Mitchell, and Jordan Walsh. But there is no depth. Missouri has been very impressive this year. Outside of the blowout loss to Kansas, Missouri is 12-1. They just beat Kentucky at home by 14. Dennis Gates has brought his defense from Cleveland State. They are locking down. They are number 2 in the country inside the arc. I am going with Missouri and 7.5 at Arkansas here. No problem tonight. I don't know why we're not taking points for Providence, and I haven't been the biggest Providence fan. I get that, but they have impressed me tremendously here. And now it's UConn. UConn beat Villanova at home, beat Georgetown home, but they struggled, lost to Xavier. So I get it. It's a bounce back spot, but do you want to go against Ed Cooley and the Magic that's up there in the Dunkin' Donuts Center? I certainly do not. So I am taking the points here. Ed Cooley's team 12-3, 4-0 overall in the Big East. 53% from inside the arc, and they're fantastic on the boards. They're going to battle UConn. They're going to muck it up tonight. I love this team. Nation's 10th longest winning streak at 7 for the Providence Friars. 5.5, too much. It was at 6.5, and it's climbing. I like UConn here, and we've thought they are very good, and they are, but let's see them handle some adversity here on the road in a difficult spot. Remember, Connecticut built this strong resume on teams like Stonehill, Boston University, Buffalo, UNC Wilmington, Delaware State. So their record at 14-0 may be a little overinflated here. Providence, Ed Cooley's Friars, after the magic you saw last year, not going against it. We are taking the 5.5 here with UConn. Be careful with TCU. This is, again, another game that I'm avoiding, but I want to see who's healthy. If LJ Cryer is back and they are totally healthy here with their big trio of scores, I will lay the points with Baylor. People are going to be all over TCU because TCU was fantastic here and had a nice big comeback in a rough environment there. TCU, when they went against Texas Tech, they were down to Texas Tech Red Raiders in that game, came back to win 67-61. I think this is a little bit of a letdown spot. I like TCU. I like Mike Miles. I love what they have going on. They're finally healthy, but that was a little worried against Texas Tech. Baylor, most of the money I expect to go on TCU here. They're going to say, Baylor has struggled lately. Why is it 6 points? Because I think this is similar to last night's spot. They're coming off a terrible loss, 77-62 at Iowa State. Just like Creighton last night was ready for a big home performance. I think Baylor's ready for a big home performance tonight. I will lay that 6 points there against TCU. Still not betting on North Carolina. They've been terrible against the spread this year, and Wake Forest has been fantastic under Steve Forbes. They can score. They want to run with North Carolina. The only time we got to pick wrong with North Carolina is when they played James Madison. They got hot from 3. So, again, this is not one of my top picks, but if North Carolina doesn't shoot well from 3, Wake Forest is going to cover this number. If North Carolina has one of those nights with Caleb Love and RJ Davis where they hit it from 3, no problem, then this may be different. But I'm taking the points with 10.5 against North Carolina. Not one of my top picks, but I will take that as well. I believe in Northwestern in the bounce back here. You may be nervous after seeing that bad performance against Ohio State, but I like what Northwestern is doing. I think that they were a little maybe overinflated, but I think you get a big bounce back here at home. 3.5. They are still number 1 in the country, Northwestern, at defending inside the arc, only allowing 39.1%. Here comes an Illinois team with chemistry problems. Here comes an Illinois team that needs to score from inside the arc. Here comes an Illinois team that is terrible at offensive turnovers. So you have a team in Illinois that has struggled with turnovers, going against one of the best defensive teams in the country in Northwestern. This was at 2.5. It went up to 3.5. Too much of a reaction from last game. I will take Northwestern. This pick is based on Hunter Couture. If Hunter Couture is back, Virginia Tech's going to beat Clemson and give them their first loss in the ACC. If Hunter Couture does not play, then to me it's a stay away. But I am going with Virginia Tech minus 6.5, assuming that Couture plays. He is a 3-point shooter. He runs the offense. Virginia Tech has been fantastic with him in the game, and they had a lot of early season success, which has been stifled here because they've had some trouble with injuries. But this is a team that beat North Carolina, that beat Dayton, that beat Oklahoma State, and then they've lost their last 2 games, Boston College in overtime when Couture got hurt, and Wake Forest as well away in a game that they almost won despite him not playing. So if Couture plays, I'm going to be on this game. If he doesn't, I'm going to stay out of it. And the last game we have here, folks, Butler minus 8 versus DePaul. I have not been impressed whatsoever with DePaul. I don't like them at all, but I do like Butler at home. DePaul now going on the road. Butler with 3 losses to Connecticut, Creighton, and Providence. Then they bounced back away with a big win over Georgetown, winning by 29. I'm not impressed with Georgetown, but I am impressed with them at home. They were away against Creighton. Providence is a much more talented team than DePaul, and Connecticut, of course, has been dominant, and they were playing very, very well at the time. So people may be on DePaul because they're not impressed with Butler because they're only 9-6, but I think Butler at home is a team that you can definitely go for, and you can lay this big number. Colby says, and he's right, and he's certainly right as always, fade Johnny Dawkins, and that's what we're going to do. So, folks, there are your picks, a ton of them. I tried to cover as many as I can. Make sure to sign up at FTN, hit the like and subscribe button. We go through our games here. It's a volume show here, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. We are looking for another win and another wins to get us to the window and to have us be successful tonight. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm Mike Randle, Chief Content Officer here at FTN. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's see if we can keep it rolling tonight.